welcome to Your Biggest Fan podcast with me, Jessica Huffman, as your host. And on this channel, I help people cultivate an authentic and personal relationship with God. And in that process, I get to become your biggest fan. Thanks for tuning in and joining the journey. Don't forget to like, comment, and share with others who might find encouragement in their relationship with God from this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Your Biggest Fan podcast. And I have a special guest with me today. And her name is Katie Wiggins. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here today.
Me too. I'm glad to be here.
It's going to be a fun podcast.
Yeah.
And to kind of share a little bit about where we got on this topic together is Katie and I were kind of laughing about passive-aggressive quotes, images, and sometimes the images, let's be real, you'll see like a celebrity's face on it and then this passive-aggressive quote. And I'm like, I highly doubt
they didn't say that.
Brad Pitt said that.
Yeah.
So we're going to do lots of laughing, but also we're going to get a little deep with this whole thing and talk about toxic empowerment.
Yes.
Da, da, da. But Katie, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what you do.
My name is Katie Wiggins. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Jacksonville, Florida. I am a grief counselor that's my niche, but I specialize in homicidal loss specifically. But I see anything from, for anything for mental health. So any presenting issue, I definitely assist with and help.
I love it.
Yeah.
So she is changing the world one soul at a time. And I love it. I love Katie. She is raw, she's real, she's direct, and she's hilarious. And if you're not sure what we're talking about when we talk about toxic empowerment, we're going to read a few quotes. Now, listen, here's what I just need to ask from everybody listening to this podcast. If you have ever shared a quote like this, do not be mad at me or Katie.
Yeah. Just change your behavior.
Just change your behavior. And we've all been there. I've shared some things that people have been like, oh my God, what does she mean? And sometimes we're just not. We don't mean anything by it. It's just kind of like, oh, this is a really great quote. And people are like, what's going on?
Or it's what we're feeling in the moment.
It is what we're feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
Or we feel like we just need to air out our grievances in the moment to strangers on the internet.
Yeah.
Hoping that we'll get what? I don't know. But there is a deeper psychology behind it. We're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's read the first quote that represents toxic empowerment. And if we laugh, you guys just laugh with us. Laugh at yourself. Okay, first one, Katie. Toxic empowerment quote 1 and go.
Stop feeding people food from your soul when they only want a plate to go.
What does that even mean?
A doggy bag of my soul.
It's like our souls are a buffet. Whew. Okay, I had some terrible experiences with buffet growing up, so we're not going to go there. Triggered. All right, what's the next one?
To avoid disappointment, expect nothing from no one, in caps. Emotions are temporary. Logic is forever.
Well, bum, bum. Oh, that's heavy. All caps,
There's
man.
some truth to that one, but
Yeah, but it's
you
very
can't avoid disappointment.
Yeah, and there's emotions always going to be a part of life. It's not about getting rid of emotions, how to handle it,
That's right. Yeah.
All right, what's our next one?
I forgive, but I also learn a lesson. I won't hate you, but I'll never get close enough for you to hurt me again. I can't let my forgiveness become foolishness.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just imagine taking that stance in my marriage. I would have a terrible marriage.
Yeah.
Because when you're married, you're going to open yourself up to shots.
Yeah.
Like
you'd be
you're going to
stonewalling.
Yeah. And if I'm like, I'm never going to get close with you again.
Yeah. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Okay, what's the next one? What do we got? What else we got?
May you always see people for exactly who they are, not who you fantasize them to be.
So in other words, see them terribly.
Yes. unless they treat you better than what you were, or they meet your expectations.
Okay, nobody would have friends
no
ever.
No disappointment there.
No relationships whatsoever.
When they're perfect, there's no disappointment.
No, exactly. Because I know I have yet to meet the perfect person.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Yeah. It's only you, Katie, so.
This one's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Drive carefully on this road called life, because people will switch lanes on you without a signal. So they're all from Jacksonville.
Oh my God.
Jacksonville drivers.
Because nobody uses signals in Jacksonville. Do you have any more?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your next one?
Pay attention to how people react to your good news.
I see this one everywhere.
Yeah.
And I see this one with mainly women.
Yeah.
Who are putting themselves out there and trying to either build something or accomplish something.
Yeah.
So let's land on that quote for just a second.
Okay.
When I read that quote, what it tells me is that they have put themselves out there, they're exposed, and they're feeling vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. All of us at some point in our life are going to feel that way.
Yeah.
But what it does tell me is that they are looking at every person's reaction and response, or lack thereof, to everything that they do.
Yeah.
Which is an exhausting way to live a bold, full life.
Well, it's living in defense.
Yes.
You're always on the lookout. And I know that's a trauma response, so there's no degree of invalidation here. But that is a trauma response, and how we view people comes from that. So,
and your incredible expertise, when you say a trauma response, how would that happen for somebody like that? What would that mean for somebody who's listening to this podcast like, what? That's not a trauma response for me. That just means da-da-da-da. Yeah. But where does that come from?
It can be a lack of boundaries with our caretakers, inconsistencies, truly create a mistrust when we've had inconsistent. It starts in childhood.
Yeah.
So we've had inconsistent emotional nurturing or physical nurturing from our caretakers.
Okay, pause there. Give an example of what that could look like growing up as a child.
Abandonment.
Like parents in, parents out.
Yeah, inconsistent, not showing up for you.
Yeah.
And then as far as emotional goes, that can look like, if you're crying and your parent says stop crying, or your parent is inconsistently emotionally, or they're leaning on you for you to be their caretaker.
Yeah, like you have to be the strong one.
Yeah, there's lots of different things that can happen emotionally with our caretakers.
Do you feel like that quote, too, about looking for somebody's reaction has to do with the inability to find a good, solid support system?
Yeah.
Like knowing, I have people who support me in what I'm doing, and they're going to give me feedback, and they're going to give me, positive feedback, encouragement, affirmation, but also, like, maybe negative feedback for my own betterment.
Right. But if we look at it from the perspective of it started in childhood, and we're created, God created us to be loved, to want to be loved, to be chosen, to be seen, to be heard, all of that. And so when someone does that inconsistently, then that goes into our worth and our value. And then our worth and our value, we take that into every relationship. And we react like that inner child. So it's pretty deep.
It is.
But...
So so it's easy to say that if we're scrolling through Pinterest, because that's where it has like the best passive aggressive quotes ever. And we see this one that's like, how they clap for you.
Yeah.
Or, there's that one out there that's like, be mindful of the ones who don't clap for you. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Okay, that one's out there. I think I've shared it like years ago. I shared it one time and I realized, later down the road, I was like, I was in a
pre-pastor?
Yeah, pre-pastor. Because, I'm a pastor now, so I'm perfect. I got it all together.
Yep.
World's okay
Holding
as pastor. But when I see those quotes, is it fair enough to say that when we look at that quote and it resonates something in us, and we feel immediately like, this makes me feel good. I'm going to share it. It makes me feel like
validated.
Mm-hmm. And we almost confuse validation with empowerment.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Where we say to ourselves, this is making me feel strong. This is making me feel focused. This is making me feel seen and heard and validated, which is not actually empowerment.
No. It's not, but it feels like empowerment.
Isn't that amazing? And that typically comes from some of the possibly unhealed wounds, is what you're saying. In our life.
And so let's be that clear too on that. When I say trauma, that doesn't mean you had to have like a traumatic upbringing. I think people get that confused too. It is unhealed wounds. It's exactly what I mean by a trauma response.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean you have to have gone through some catastrophic, devastating event.
You don't.
Yeah, because a lot of people have probably unhealed wounds that they don't realize are unhealed in their life.
And every relationship offers pain and discomfort and disappointment and hurt. Not abuse or domestic violence or anything like that, but healthy relationships have conflict.
And there's a certain vulnerability. I think Brene Brown really put the term vulnerability out there for all of us to really understand. It was probably already a term that was identified in the psychology counseling world, but all of a sudden it blew up. And understanding what vulnerability is, and I think people don't still truly understand what that means for them. So let's talk about what the opposite experience would look like. So some of the points that you and I were discussing, when it comes to when we are feeling like this quote is us and it's actually toxic empowerment, what do we need to think about, or what is happening on the inside of us regardless of that? Because I know you talked about boundaries. The fear of being hurt is one of them.
Yeah, fear of being hurt.
Fear of being hurt. So like there's like unhealed stuff in relationships. Inconsistencies in people create a mistrust.
Yep.
What'd you say? Victim mindset. Yeah. So somehow we feel like we're always being taken advantage of. So what would be the anecdote or the thing that we need to really kind of address or look at when it comes to these quotes?
Well, what I do tell clients and myself, because I wouldn't tell a client something I wouldn't try myself anyway, is probably not posting on Facebook everything you feel, for starters.
That is great wisdom.
Yeah. Giving it a pause. I know you've taught me waiting 24 hours. But also the process piece of it is finding a safe space, whether that's therapy or someone that you trust.
Yeah.
Someone who has shown up for you, to process and dissect what you're actually feeling. Because, I mean, you don't actually feel like that picture says you're feeling some deeper wound. And one of the questions I've had to ask myself, and it may not apply to every single picture we just read, but what inside of me needs to change? Like, what can I shift, or what can I heal from? Like, what is it that I'm actually needing to see in this? Because when you're the victim, you can't be the survivor. You have to, you can't be both.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You can't be both at the same time. It's really powerful. And I love here you have hurt and conflict are a part of relationships, romantic or not abuse or violence. I think the thing that is so deceiving about toxic empowerment, what looks good on the surface, but really when you pull back the layers, is that we're saying to ourselves that nobody can hurt us. And that if you do, you are a terrible person. Yeah.
And it's not true. I mean, I used to think that, because I came from a very hurtful, dark background and violent background. But as I mature and I get older and become more emotionally intelligent, I realize that like hurt is a part of life. It's a part of relationship. Yeah. Again, not abuse, but it's a part of life. And how we carry that pain and how we carry through that situation says it all.
Yeah, and it shows up in how we talk.
Yep.
The things that we say on social media.
Yep.
All of the above.
And we take it into every other relationship.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
And one of the things a client shared in session was, and it was powerful to me, so it just made me think of it when you said that. Don't protect your heart by acting like you don't have one.
Wow.
Yeah. We get so hardened.
Yeah.
We allow everything to harden us, and what we keep out good and bad.
That is so true.
Yeah.
I love that. Don't protect your heart by acting like you don't have one, which means you are hurt. I feel when people share those posts too, there is something that they're expressing. They're expressing that they have been hurt.
Yeah.
And it's not the proper place.
Right.
The proper time or the proper audience. I mean, you have to think most of the people online are strangers. And when I say strangers, They don't know us.
Yeah, no, just because you're friends on social media. I have a lot of friends I've actually never met. You know, I mean, we're connected, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like it's a faux sense of connection, and it's not a great place. And when we share those things, we need to ask ourselves, like, what, like you said, what are we protecting with this? What are we not dealing with?
And what are we looking for? What do we need? Because it's about a need. When we're children, it's about needs being unmet. Ooh. And unmet expectations breeds resentment because there's something we're missing that we need.
Yep. It's like we want to take a few shots online.
Yeah.
At people, at whatever. And then I've seen people who have actually shared those quotes and they don't mean anything by it, but they still share it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then I love the verse, Proverbs 4:23. Right? Yep. We were talking about it. It says, but above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Everything. Yeah.
So there's a certain discretion and boundaries that have to be set.
Yeah, I think we would be remiss if we didn't discuss boundaries, because I think what we're not saying is, we're not saying, hey, allow everyone who's hurt you, or allow unhealthy situations just continue in love and, you know, be happy or positive. I think what is important is boundaries need to be in place, and we often don't learn healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. If our caretakers didn't have them, we probably naturally did not learn them.
Yeah, and I feel that the more we expose online in an unhealthy way, and I'm not saying, I love people who can be vulnerable and honest online.
Yeah.
And you almost feel like it comes from an authentic place of healing and wholeness versus I'm needing something from this moment, or I'm needing some type of validation from this moment.
Yeah.
And the online world is such an interesting world, but that verse applies to everything.
It does.
Everything in our heart has to have a boundary.
Yeah.
And especially if we're hurt.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the boundaries have to be very, very clear in that moment. When we're saying something, how we're saying something, with whom we're saying something.
Yeah.
So if somebody loves to share toxic empowerment quotes, what's the first thing that you would say beyond that question of
stop
why?
it? I'm just kidding. That's the first thing I think, but I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
As a therapist or Katie?
Well, first as a therapist and then as Katie.
Katie, stop it. Therapist is, and this might come off a little direct for people who have an idea of what a therapist is, but I've said this to clients and it's worked, but like, who hurt you? You know, what happened?
Yeah,
or,
that's good.
You know, like, but I also would offer space, like, hey, this is probably not the safest space, you know, if I know the person. You know, if I don't know them, I can't say anything, but it's just, safe space is probably going to be the first and foremost.
Like, what's going on here? Like, why are you sharing this? I have actually commented that on somebody's post one time. It's very passive aggressive, like big, and I've commented like, "Are you okay?" Like question mark, and because I realized there's something more going on here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. So if you ever see, so encouragement to everybody that's listening here today, if you yourself resonate well with those quotes, just ask yourself, like, there's no shame. I know we're kind of like laughing and kind of having a lighthearted sense, and be that way. But ask yourself, what is it that I'm really needing from this moment? Yeah. Why do I really want to share this? Is this an undealt conversation that maybe needs to happen offline?
Yeah. What am I actually feeling?
What am I feeling? And then if you are a friend of somebody who does that, tell me if I'm wrong. I would encourage you, like, reach out to this. If it's a consistent manner that's happening online.
And someone you know. Like, you have to have that relationship. Yeah.
Yes. That, like, hey, I just noticed this is being shared. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk? Is there anything that I can pray for you about? If you don't know them and you're just friends on social media, maybe that's where you snooze them a bit. Yeah.
I mean, I've personally unfollowed or snoozed. It just comes from a really hurt place, and I feel nothing but compassion. I know we're laughing for real, but I do. I feel compassion, like, gosh, I know, I've been there. I get that.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I get it. But there's something beautiful when we're honest about what we're actually feeling. And our healing is our journey. So the person who hurt us, or whoever that quote is necessarily directed at, doesn't have to be involved in our healing. You know, they don't always have to be there for it.
I love that. Katie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add or share? Or
Stop it. Just stop sharing.
Stop the passive aggressive quotes.
Yes.
And again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Your Biggest Fan podcast. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye. Say bye, Katie.
Bye.